Yeah, a long way from a stuttering kid. I didn't get enough love.
Welcome to the first episode 0 of the How Men Cry podcast. I am actually not really going to be your host today. Dxtr Spits.
It's me, Audrey Boyle. I'm going to be your host today. I'm going to be asking the tough questions. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah, surprise. And maybe so, one, just thank you for tuning in to listen, for everybody out there, and for joining on this journey of getting 1,000 men. Whoop, it's Friday.
Missing a 0.
1,000 men to talk about vulnerability and mental health. And Audrey has just been a fundamental support and the executive producer, helping to just get all this stuff in line. So I don't know, do you want to intro yourself, and then I'm going to shut up and just be asked questions?
My name is Audrey Boyle, and my intention in life is to be well known for something you can't label or describe.
Dang,
I'll just leave it with that.
Is that what your intro is?
That is my intro. It's what I do. I'm an artist,
man.
very creative person, and I do have my hands in a lot of pots. One of the main ones is education. I'm a college professor at the University of Arizona, but I'm a flow catcher. I like to catch people when they're doing their flow. When they're in their moment, I like to capture it. I capture moments.
I gotta work on mine.
Yes. Who are you? Can you tell me a little bit about you, Dxtr Spits?
Is that the real actual question? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I work in STEM by day. I'm a nerd by day, and then artist and entrepreneur by night. And who am I? I would say now I am just someone who takes and channels my creative energy and business energy and STEM energy into meaningful projects and meaningful work, just to the world. I realize that I don't feel fulfilled unless I am like really pouring into something that truly matters to me. And yeah, that's definitely part of the motivation behind How Men Cry. Is selfishly, I want to be doing something important.
So the intro had your music. I mean, you're an artist musician as well. So I feel like that's going to get lost in the fray of all of the wonderful things with How Men Cry. Tell me more.
Well, I told you that if How Men Cry blows up, I'm just going to be sitting around screaming, "Listen to my mixtape!" It's all because for real, I'm just like my background. I've kind of always had like this duality of a curious mind, both in the physical world, which is I think what motivated me to go into STEM. Like I've always kind of tinkered around with stuff and been curious about life and existence and physics, et cetera, but alongside of that, I've found writing as probably one of my greatest and earliest resiliency factors, because I actually had like a really bad stutter as a kid. And I think from that, I didn't always feel comfortable talking or trying to vocalize what was going on with me. So I think I kind of naturally turned towards finding pages, because they don't, they allow you to let it out. So that has always been something that I've brought along with me at every stage. It's like, I've been writing, whether it be music or poetry, but it's definitely followed every stage of life. I actually was looking through old school notebooks that I had, just kind of doing some old cleaning. And there's literally like pages where it's like physics formulas and breaking down like differential equations or calculus. And then on the other side, it's like this random rap about trap stuff.
It's so funny that you have both sides of your brain, and both of them are coping mechanisms. So,
Yeah.
As you see all the podcast episodes, I'm just letting everybody know, like, he seems very laid back and just very chill, like he's about to take a nap. But when you listen to his music, it's like, oh, and the spoken word, you're like, oh, you just like grab, it's very passionate. It's like, it's buried down deep. And when you come out creatively, it's like, this happened. So
Yeah.
I remember the first time you sent me a video and I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that was lurking under the surface.
Yeah. I think it's probably somewhere along the lines, and it probably is somewhat to do with that kind of retreating to myself a lot, is that, like I said, I wasn't very outwardly expressive in a bunch of ways, probably at just at different points being younger. I think when I was very, very young, but there was definitely a period of this kind of inward retreat. And then also finding stuff like meditation, Young in Life, and other things like that. Like, I feel like that probably brought around a general surface level calm. But unfortunately, and probably some of what's socialized too, but unfortunately, that sometimes doesn't allow it to be shown if I might be struggling with something, or like going through things, or how much might actually be going on in my mind at like any given moment, because it always appears even kill. So
I think that's the case with Black men, right? They bury their emotions and it comes out in different ways.
yeah.
So tell me how you show vulnerability.
I mean, nowadays, all the time. I would say I show it definitely just like verbally, vocally, um, to kind of anyone that is close to me, just by telling them how I feel. Like, it took me a long time to realize that I wasn't really doing that. Like, it literally took me until like 30 years old to realize that I wasn't really expressing what I was feeling deep down. I would express like a surface level understanding of what was going on. And it took me some time to kind of dig down in therapy to really say, oh, this is how you actually feel. And this is what's going on. And this is what you convey. And that's not always negative feelings. That might be positive feelings, might be feelings of joy, feelings of sadness, whatever it may be. But now I just kind of openly try to tap into whatever it is that's going on with me and express that to people. And then, another way, of course, is through art and music and performance. Like, when I write, I really try to strip away the idea of what is thought to be cool, or what is thought to be I don't even know, like in style, in trend, whatever it is. Like, I'm almost like aggressively anti some of those things mentally, where, I'm just like, I try to more and more in my art, like tap further and further into what I'm really, really going through and bring that out. And that's like one of my main means of vulnerable expression.
So when was the last time you cried?
Girl, I know you know already, but literally like every day at this point now. I mean, almost every day, maybe not every single one, but it's so regular at this point. I think my body's playing catch up for so many years of not doing so. So I'm trying to think of what actually, oh, I know exactly when it was. I was actually editing the podcast interview with my father and I just had a moment of like sitting back, and it wasn't even anything that was said within the podcast, but his relationship and mine have had their moments of kind of ups and downs, and it was just a really powerful moment to just sit back and look at. Our episode is like really short, but it happened when we were like sitting outside having like a little camping trip, and I just threw on the camera and just let us talk for a bit. So I think just seeing that was so powerful in terms of how much growth and how much communication that has gotten it to that point. And just the project as a whole. I mean, like, it's not it is rarely now tears of sadness directly. Like, a lot of times it's like a fully encompassed thing. There might be some sadness, some mourning going on, but a lot of it is just like appreciation and just witnessing what's happening. So again, in short, I'm crying all the time now. Like I'm reading
Crying
these
all the
stories and
time.
hearing it's like, it might not be like full on ugly cry all the time, but yeah, the tears are
But
definitely
you
coming.
get verklempt, you get like misty. I get misty. I think that women, will say, "Oh, we're going to watch a movie, so we haven't had a good cry in a while. We're going to watch a sad movie and we're going to cry."
Yeah.
So women, we run towards the crying and controlled crying, but
Yeah.
men, it's just completely different. It's completely different the way that you cry.
Yeah.
So, when was the first time that you remember crying?
Hmm.
Ugly cry.
Who ugly cry? I'll probably go with first time in adulthood because I'm sure in childhood they was all over the place. Um, Probably in adulthood, or I'll say my most powerful cry was I've actually for the first time in the past year and after going through therapy, um, one realize and just witness how much just different points of trauma I've had through my life. And I stumbled upon this book actually, and I was with my partner at the time, and actually had just had a like panic attack slash breakdown, which is something that I hadn't started having until going through a bunch of therapy and a lot of stuff surfaced. So even that whole experience has been new. I mean, and that's like this year. This isn't like an old story. This is like within like 8 months or so. Um, and so that panic attack happened, which was jarring within itself. And then I picked up this book and this journal that I had actually written in from being 14 or 15 years old. And it was just such a sad read for the mental space that I was in at that time because I mean, long story short, I had a tumor in my chest that I wasn't telling anybody about because in my mind, I wanted it to kill me. I was kind of dealing with some issues of like my father being in and out of the home and not really being as present as I would have liked in those times. My parents were splitting up, relatives dying. I mean, it was like a lot in that time. And I just remember reading that story um, and just basically like really mourning for that younger version of myself and like reading and feeling how much pain I was in at that time and how long that went buried. Um, so that's probably the deepest ugly cry that I've had in like recent time because it was like a very pivotal point for me.
How easy is it for you? You're crying right now. You said you cry often now, but like when it comes to relationships, is talking about emotions, is connection, is what how has that affected you not being able to show the emotion in your relationships?
Yeah. I mean, to be real, like we laying it all out there, I've been horrible in relationship for the most part. Like I can see it so much more clearly now. And this is something that like I've literally had to try to go back and do in terms of like apologizing to like previous partners or like trying to figure out ways. And some relationships you just can't mend. It's just like the damage is done or whatever it is. But like recognizing how much I think hurt I was causing from not really knowing how to express what was going on and sometimes being in really really terrible mental spaces and just people in proximity of that and then, you know, you can't talk about it. It just ends up this like compounding, spiraling thing. And, you know, and it brings, to me, holding in stuff like that, it just brings out the worst in you. It's the worst, you know, like verbal scenarios, the worst actions, the worst whatever, because you're just in this like agitated, like upset or depressed state. And then it's like lashing out towards anyone nearby. And I think in relationship, there were so many, like, I think just scenarios of people trying to show love or trying to express, and that's friendship and like dating wise, like trying to show love and trying to be close. And I would have a very, very, very difficult time allowing that to happen. And that's still something that I'm actively working through. Like I haven't quite solved that one. You know, because I've been able to swap other things in the place of not having to address that. You know, I've been able to, oh, you know, I got career going on. I can check the boxes. I can check all the guy boxes. And that leaves you distracted enough to not feel like you have to deal with that stuff. But it's so, I'll just say like that's been, it's been a deep part of the journey, is like learning and allowing myself to feel, allowing myself to let people be close. Like it's to the point where I would have a physical response of like pulling back from people like trying to give me a hug or like pulling away from just like simple affection, stuff that you would consider normal displays of affection, which I now realize is like related to a bunch more trauma and a bunch of layered things. But yeah, it is getting better now. It is getting better now. But that's been a hard road for sure.
I've known you for a few years. I think that you are a different man than you were when I met you.
Yeah.
Can you attribute that to what? To how men cry, to therapy, to what do you attribute that to?
Yeah, therapy. Like how men cry is a product of a lot of that journey. Therapy has been a monumental change. Like therapy and more reinvestment into mindfulness and other stuff like that has been a big shift in just how I've been able to approach the world and approach and deal with myself. Like as of today, actually, I think it's 42 or 43 days like sober of any type of substance in any way. Probably in my most clear state that I've ever been, probably one of the longest periods of time that I've gone without feeling depressed and without, what's been really difficult is that I wanted to do it without going on any type of medication. And that's just taken like a lot of discipline and just a lot of internal work. But therapy has been the catalyst and support system that has allowed all of that work to be done. Like 1,000%.
1,000%. So I'm going to circle back to your relationships. You said that it's almost like you lashed out, you weren't able to communicate. Have you forgiven yourself for your role?
Girl, you asking the real questions today, huh? I would say that is also taking time to do. I'm in the process of doing that because, you know, the thing is like when you really try to look in a mirror, it can be really difficult. And it's like, you know, that like behavior and stuff is not excusable, you know, like even just because of the states that you may have been in. But what I would say is I am forgiving myself, and then I'm also able to add so much more context and so much more empathy and compassion for so many other people around me, you know, that may have done or contributed in like certain ways, you know, like not to get too far in it, but it's like it really is just a continuous cycle of hurt people. It's like I've been, you know, like verbally abused. I've been shut down. I've been like dismissed. There's been a lot of things that you see that happen to you, and then consciously or subconsciously or whatever, you push a lot of that stuff forward. And it's like it's a difficult process, but it's like trying to own up to that and then face it and then adjust. And the part of forgiveness is tricky, because like it doesn't really feel good, to have to say, man, like I really fucked up something, and then like trying to go and like address that. And like I said, I mean, I've had mixed responses in terms of just trying to have conversations in previous points in life of like, yo, like I didn't even know how fucked up I was, like this is the points that I'm in. And I think for the most part, the responses, whether that's family members, friends, relationships, is just like, I think people can see probably some of that same growth that you were speaking to. So
it's got to be scary, right? To have good conversation and communication and forgive yourself. To me, that would be it is a scary thing for me personally.
Yeah.
It's like, what if everything works out and I feel good and I'm able to have like all of this? Like, it's a scary thing.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, a thing that I've had to walk myself back from is like, is like being okay with being okay. Like there's a weird thing that happens when you start to come out of depressions or come out of some of the same things that weighed you down for so long. And then it's like, oh, I've been stable for like a few days. It's like, oh, I've been, kind of chilling, or this feels okay, or oh, I can smile and go on vacation, and like my friend group is good. Like you're there. There's like a strange rejection almost to it, and that's been a fascinating journey for me to kind of learn about within myself.
Yeah, it's just so scary when you come out of depression, I feel like you don't realize how depressed you are until you start to come out of it.
Yeah.
And there's so many habits that get formed when you're that low that once you start doing different things, your body is like, wait, I don't understand. I don't know. What are we doing now?
Yeah.
And then that creates fear. That change of lifestyle creates fear.
Yeah.
So something that was really impactful to me that I learned, and I can't say that I knew this all along, but someone said to me many years ago that a man bases much of his worth off of how he can protect, and provide for his family.
Yeah.
So much of it is surrounded around that. And I've told other women that's like this, like, oh my God, this is secret sauce, And it's just interesting to see women's reaction to that, because they go, oh, well, but this person is not quite like that, or they don't care about that. I'm like, yeah, but that's there under the surface. And that means different things to different men.
Yeah.
So you would agree with that?
Oh, I would definitely agree. Like that's a pressure that it has taken me some time to realize how severe it is, because like there's and men have talked about it on the upcoming episodes that you'll see, is that there's like this attachment to your value being just related to what you can produce or what you can provide or whatever it is, and this competitive nature of, if you're not doing this and doing that, and that's the checking the box thing. I got really good at trying to do that. I can check the box for the job or for the blah blah blah, or I can start a business, or I can like all of those little things. And what's really tricky about that is that it's one, it's not the only way that you have to live your life, and that's not the only story of value for men. There are men who are stay-at-home fathers. There are men who just pour their life into the arts and they don't care about no money or about whatever else. Like, and those are ways to exist. But that the narrative is really aggressive towards young men, and I can say in particular within the Black culture. There's a lot, and I've started to realize this more, that I think is sometimes tied to when you don't feel valued in a bigger societal lens sometimes, it becomes like even more important for you to have the superficial successes, which is why I think there's so much attitude towards I have to show off this money or show off this success or show off whatever it is, because that's supposed to give you that feeling of fulfillment. And the real, you know, like plot twist of it all is that it doesn't really work to make you feel fulfilled. Or even if you check all of those boxes, if you can't figure out how to really establish good relationships, you know, you can be a provider with an unhappy partner and unhappy children and passing down a bunch of toxic behavior. So it doesn't, you know, it really doesn't, it's kind of is a wash, you know, if you can't figure out how to do the really important stuff.
One emotion that men are allowed to show, because if, say, you know, they're protecting, they're providing for their family, one emotion they're allowed to show is anger.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's the one emotion. Other than that, it's like, what? Wait, I don't understand what's going on here. Why are you whatever? You know, there's always that judgment. But that's the one emotion that women aren't allowed to show. So it's almost like this is the one emotion that men can show. Women can't show any anger, and then we're supposed to carry all the other emotions. So it's lopsided when it comes to our relationships and who's carrying the emotional load. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with that.
So tell me, what do you hope to achieve with How Men Cry?
You know, I really do think it's as simple as just allowing men to have better relationships. Like that really is a lot of it. And also just really revealing how important mental health and understanding your feelings really is, like in terms of just all interpersonal relationships. It's just like we've told men a really terrible myth, you know, that we don't feel or that we're not going to have these emotions or whatever else is going on. And you know, not to bring it down too much, but I've had within the past couple weeks, you know, a younger cousin overdose from a lot of stuff that was going on, I think just mentally and emotionally. And then another circumstance of, you know, someone I've known in the past, like literally committing, like murdering their, you know, fiance to be. And or fiance. And I think it is, without addressing what's going on the deeper levels, whether that is just the anger or the hurt or the trauma that sometimes has just happened to people, you know, like it's a ticking time bomb for hurt and sometimes like really final consequences and circumstances, whether that's suicide or domestic violence or harm of others. I mean, it is literally a ticking time bomb for so many men out in the world. So, you know, it might be a crazy feat to try to tackle, but, you know, just trying to push away that narrative that we have to operate like that and make it more acceptable and more comfortable, you know, for men to just talk about what's going on with them and seek the help, man, because it's a lot of pressure on us in a lot of different ways that is just not spoken about.
I mean, I've been seeing the clips. I've seen the podcast episodes. I mean, it's so good. Like my husband will be like, "Oh, you coming to bed?" I'm like, "Oh, in a minute." And just click, you know, and I'm like, you know, it's so good. I mean, it's almost like a joy pain thing to see a man open up and show his emotions and talk about what's really down deep and what's really important to him.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, you know, when it comes to How Men Cry and all the interviews that are coming in season 1, I mean, that's what it's all about, is understanding that it is different between a man and a woman.
Yeah.
Or humans are all different.
Yeah, I mean that human, I think that's the point that I end up landing on personally. Is like there's the human experience is so complicated. I mean, like for anybody. And what I kind of dislike about what has happened, or just what I see within the world right now, is like even out of seemingly the most accepting groups of people, the behavior that's being shown is not like acceptance for everybody's human experience. And for everybody's, that means people that you agree with and people that you don't agree with. That means people that have a similar story and people that don't. That's why I didn't want to limit the How Men Cry project to just being men that look like me directly. That is definitely a part of it. But the story is a lot deeper than that. And I've had friends that look entirely different that have been through some really abusive shit. Just to be real, like some really, really terrible things. Some like not even mentioned within the podcast, just things that I know that folks have opened up to me about. And it's like we can't keep walking around allowing this stuff to happen like that. And it is difficult because I understand that the actions make it hard to provide empathy sometimes. But like one of the pieces out of the How Men Cry series that'll be within the book, just basically talks about witnessing a shooting happen and just kind of having a level of understanding that there is literally hurt on both sides of that weapon. And it's hard to provide empathy like that, but it's something that we have to start doing if we really want to see people heal.
It's I remember when I was younger, somebody telling me that just to shoot a gun is such a release. Like it's like if you're a powder keg, you have all this rage and emotion and anger and everything's there. If you shoot a gun, you go and shoot guns at a target range or go to a shooting range and you shoot a gun. It's just such a release from there. And I think that you're right. I mean, there's on both sides of the violence, there's so much hurt and pain. And we can continue to just say, okay, we're going to put you on a shelf. You're going to prison. That's it. Or we could try to solve the foundational problem that's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And that one, I mean, I have a lot of strong feelings, because even individuals from just previous points in life, I have friends who have been in and out of the prison system, and just how and I'm sure this isn't really news to anybody, but we're not trying to rehabilitate things. We're not really trying to help people heal out of these circumstances. And I've seen brilliant minds, either pass away or, commit suicide or be locked away forever from societies that don't that aren't really interested in seeing who that person can be. And I'm like, we're losing geniuses and men who could be very empathetic and whatever it is. And it really is sometimes I don't want to attribute everything to circumstances, but it really does have a lot to do with it. It's sad in particular within the prison systems. It's just, people are not supposed to be held like that. It's just not. It is never going to work out within the long term. It's just that one's definitely sad for me. That's a pretty strong pain point.
When we're in school and we go to school, and a great friend of mine, Tina Marie Olson, used this analogy. We know that you're supposed to be potty trained, for example. So you go to school and say you have an accident, everybody is shaming you, and it's very judgy because you had an accident at school and you have to change your pants. Maybe your parents are called or whatever. But emotions are similar to you not being potty trained. We just expect everyone to figure it out, but all we know really is that they're not welcome. So it's just like, it's not welcome at all. And if you do show any emotion, it's like, wait, what are you doing? What's going on? Why are you crying? You know, why are you yelling? Why are you angry? Like what's going on? We just want to shut it away and pretend like it's not happening.
Yeah.
And then an episode happens where something violent, and that's when we pay attention. And we should pay attention way before that with the steps. So to me, that is what How Men Cry is doing for me, is it's helping me pay attention to all the steps in the beginning and not to the point where, you know, we're wetting ourselves.
Yeah, no, literally. And honestly, I love that analogy. And honestly, like what I was kind of mentioning is that for a lot of these men, and what's been really powerful is the conversations that haven't even happened within the podcast. It's been conversations of men reaching out to me, you know, like separately about what they're going through, or just like expressing things and talking through things differently. And it is what I've really come to find is that there are so many men that just don't feel like they have the space. Like they just don't feel like they have the space to talk about what's going on. And with how we have sometimes like culturally responded to things, and like I get the frustration, I get the anger behind people's action, but I think one of the things that can happen with men is that it's like, you know, oh, you're a man, and therefore you check all of these boxes. I've used that a couple times, but you check the boxes in terms of like, well, you know, you must feel like this, or you must act this way, or you must whatever. And I think it gets hard to kind of like try to present versions of yourself and like openly question things that are potentially worth being questioned, or like openly talk about things, because of this almost fear of like response that, you know, you'll be shamed, or that nobody's going to value your opinion, or whatever it is. There's this like complicated scenario, and I mean that within the context of like sensitive topics. I think that's what I've mainly found. So there's a lot of men who are really willing to open up and just talk, because I think they can start to feel trapped. And I think when you feel trapped, and you feel like, well, I can't, you know, really say anything publicly or socially, and then I don't really have a way, you know, or I'm not supposed to be able to talk about my feelings, because that's a whole thing. And then I can't talk about it at work, because you're not supposed to bring that type of stuff into work. And then I can't talk about it with my partner, because either I don't know how to, you know, or I was never shown an example of doing this. And it really, to me, makes a lot of sense for the isolation that unfortunately sometimes leads to so much self-harm, is because I think people, you know, it can get to the point of just feeling so alone within the world and no outlets to turn, and they want to shut the pain off, you know. And I've been to that point, you know, personally several times within life.
So How Men Cry it's a podcast, right? But what else is it?
So yeah, we got stuff, man. So so originally it just started as a book, and actually I have it's supposed to be up here already. So originally it just began as a book. That's actually me and my mother on the cover. And you know, I wrote those pieces kind of coming out of therapy, not thinking that they would turn into anything, but the more that I kind of shared them with individuals, I realized how powerful some of the work was. So it went from just being this book, and then I was like, well, I know that my like the spoken word and the reading of a lot of the pieces or the poetry adds so much more context and so much more like energy to what's being said. So then we filmed a series of spoken word videos to kind of supplement the book. And then I had conversations with different mentors and other individuals who were basically talking about the importance of this conversation on a wider scale. And that moved us more towards wanting to capture these stories And I really believe in like showing the behaviors that you want to see, and also empowering individuals to, do things for themselves. So the hope is that with things like the podcast and with the story submissions of guys talking about when they've cried, the hope is that it can make it easier for them to have conversations about what's going on later, and also all the individuals that witness those conversations, and just hopefully that has spiral effects throughout the community, and hopefully the world for that matter.
100% has a ripple effect. I don't know how many people have said, based off of seeing just a clip or talking to you more about how men cry, I was able to have such a deep conversation with my significant other or my dad or my brother, or it definitely has a ripple effect.
Yeah.
So the spoken word, I did a virtual show during the pandemic, the heart of pandemic. And Dexter came on the show and he performed one of the spoken word pieces on the show. It got 70,000 views just organically, like people were sharing it wildly because it was so powerful. And that's just one piece of what How Men Cry is one spoken word piece. There's 4.
Yeah.
And not to mention all the interviews, all the stories of men saying, I cry when. And it's just there's so much content that's coming out.
Yeah. I can't wait. And that's the type of stuff that'll bring the tears up. Sometimes it's like looking back and just witnessing something that just started from, crying out through writing, from just what I was witnessing, and then just to see it all start to flourish. And, I've had a lot of moments of just like, do I want to do, like, I've had a lot of moments of you should step down from doing this kind of thing. And there's just something like deep, deep, deep down that is just like, this is the right thing to be doing with your time. So I've just been trying to trust and just sink into that and just let it be.
Every time you mention the content, I get misty too. I'm actually getting misty right
Well,
now.
I have a few different times in this conversation.
It's just like, oh my goodness, because it is such a joy, but it is so much pain that comes across, and it's just so much healing that's happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is all the questions I have for you right now, but I'm sure we will have some in the future.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. And honestly, I appreciate just the depth of this whole conversation, and just for all the amazing support that you've also provided. You guys don't necessarily get to see it as much, but we've been cranking away at this for some time now, and probably, endless amounts of conversation and creative ideas, and like pitching stuff back and forth, and just road work. There's just been literally just so much like blood, sweat, and tears that have just poured into this project. And
legit DNA in this project for sure.
Like, it's crazy.
And when you say sometime, he's just being vague. Years that has gone into this. So
yeah. So
yeah.
that's been awesome. So thanks for joining in on the journey, Audrey. I literally couldn't have done it without you. So I do appreciate it. And you know that already. I'm just trying to say it so the people hear it too.
For the people, but it's been my joy. It's been my honor to actually be on this project. And so many people, the reception and the healing that is already taking place, and we haven't even released any content.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable to me.
Yeah, it's really wild. And yeah, so I will definitely say a thank you just to everybody out there, even so far, that has, well, so far, pun intended. So far sounds too, shout out to y'all. But no, just it's been overwhelming already. And I think it just gives me even more hope to see where it can potentially go. And yeah, that's why we're gonna do it.
There's one question I have for you, actually, as we close out. Mm-hmm. Is there one piece of advice that you could give to every man?
And
this is just like broad strokes. Is there just one piece of advice? If you would want them to hear one message, one word, one saying, one clip, one thing, is there something that you would just universally like to broadcast out?
whether you think you need it or not, just give therapy a try, because you may be surprised at what is revealed to you, and take it serious enough to let the ego and let the guards down for a moment and just really try to sink into the base of your experiences that have gotten you to who you are today. And I don't care how strong, how wise, how much money in the bank, how whatever it is, all of those parameters, there's nothing like really learning and finding who you are and in the deepest version of yourself. So.
Whew. Okay. Ooh, how the mic, I mean, I just felt like the mic dropped. That's it.
I mean, I had to think about that one, because it really is. I mean, there's been, and I had therapy like a few hours before this. I mean, this is still, regular for me. And even when you think you're done the work, man, it's like, it's really a lifetime commitment. And not saying that you have to be in therapy for your entire life, but just saying, the work and like really staying in touch with yourself. It's just it's a whole different angle of work that I didn't realize was there before starting this journey. So
yeah, it's a whole different perspective on self-care.
absolutely.
And everyone could use a year of therapy. Like
Yeah.
every human being could use a year of therapy.
Yeah.
Some need more, some maybe need a little bit less, but definitely I can co-sign on that, giving it a try.
Yeah. And
Being
maybe
open
just,
to it.
yeah. And one more note on that too is just like, there's great books and great resources out there. The book, The Body Keeps the Score. There's books, another one called Tapping In. There are books that basically that talk about, I'll say, even just the level and number of traumatic experiences that people are going through. And when you really tally it up, and this is what the author of the Body Keeps the Score was kind of getting at, is that he's like, trauma is actually our number one biggest issue, if you will, to be solved within the country as well as the world for that matter. And the more and more that I'm doing this type of work, the more and more that I can really see the truth in that, because so many other things in the world probably wouldn't go the way that they did if, we were a bit more trauma informed, as well as, just trying to collectively provide empathy and work for each other. So I'm gonna stop talking. All right.
It's in our DNA. Trauma is in our DNA. So generationally, and you think about the life of the Black person in America. If trauma is in our DNA, it's like we've already inherited trauma, and we are also getting continued trauma. So
absolutely. Yeah.
But yes, this has been a great conversation. I'm really glad that we did this episode 0.
Yeah.
How Men Cry. And there's so much amazing content that is coming out, and it's going to be released from here on out. So I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to all the healing and men having healthy relationships, all men having healthy relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thank you. I can do the little closeout spiel. If you all want to find out more, you can always visit How Men Cry on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, on YouTube, because that's where the video podcasts are held if you're listening into this. And just continue to follow along on the journey. You can submit stories as well on those platforms, or at howmencry.com. We are looking for more and more men to just sit down and take the time to write out a bit about how they have cried, or times that they've shown vulnerability, so we can just continue this conversation. So thank you again, Audrey, and for all of the How Men Cry support so far. And
yes, thank you.
Yeah, from here on out and to the stars and back, whatever. I don't know what kind of closing statements we have, but
to the moon and back.
to the moon and back. So, all right, thank you all.